Hello and welcome to the Unbroken podcast. I'm your host, Nichols. We have a special guest with us here today, fitness coach and entrepreneur, Julia Sylvestri. She is the owner of Forza Fitness, located in Raleigh, North Carolina. And her vision is unlike none other in the fitness business, and it aligns with my vision in terms of bridging the gap between mental health and fitness. And we wanted to bring her on today to discuss some different views and opinions and also her mindset overall in terms of what she's building down there in North Carolina. So welcome in, Julia.
Hi, thank you for having me.
No problem, no problem. Yeah, so tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I was born and raised in New Jersey, and I moved down to North Carolina for school. So moved down to North Carolina in 2015, went to ECU, studied exercise physiology, and then I was on track to go to PT school. And near the end of my senior year, I decided I didn't want to go anymore. I wanted to start branching out and start making my own money, making my own life. And so I decided to start my career. So I moved to Raleigh, North Carolina, instead of moving back to New Jersey. And I started my career in clinical research, which is what I still do currently full time. But at the same time, I also picked up personal training more seriously.
Right.
So I've been doing that on the side, but trying to take it more full time. And yeah, so I grew up in a very loud and obnoxious Italian household, and kind of brought that down to North Carolina. And yeah, and I started building my business. Still working on it, still in the beginning stages, and yeah, so that's what I'm doing currently.
Gotcha. Yeah, so Julie and I, so for the listeners listening in, we originally got linked with a producer. So his name is Alex Hopper. He does South End Productions. So I'm actually running an ultra race in Roanoke in April, and he's actually covering the entire event in terms of doing the videography and everything, overviewing that documentary. So he reached out to me one day. He's like, "Hey, I have someone I just got done working with, and her mindset is similar to yours. I'd love to make that connection." And sent me a text, and then all of a sudden we got linked, and I gave her a call, and just similar mindset, just driven, wanting to do more, wanting to help. And for me, being in the health industry, I was a therapist before, transitioned into life coaching, and talking with her, it was a really interesting just viewpoint in terms of what she's doing, and it parallels with my world so well. So that was one of the things, like how we just got connected. Yeah. So yeah.
Oh, yeah. So it was a really great connection. I remember I got a text from Alex and said, "Hey, I have this guy that I'm working with. I'm doing a documentary for him, and I think your mindsets really pair well together, and you guys are kind of on a similar path with making a difference and bridging that gap between mental health and physical fitness." And I think whether something comes from it or not, I think it's a great connection and great relationship to have, and have that good support system, and someone who understands your mindset, understands your vision and your mission and everything. So it was really cool to actually find somebody in my corner, because it's kind of hard when you have such a strong mindset towards something, and there's not a whole lot of people out there with that same mindset. So whenever you make that one, at least just one connection, that goes a long way than no connection at all.
Right. Where do you feel like, I guess, like what separates you from other people in terms of that mindset? I relate to that as well. Like I always consider myself a very weird individual, just because most people don't really get on that next level of whether that's fitness or mentality or this drive and personality just in general. So like what makes you, I guess, different in that way?
I think just over time, I realized that I've always wanted to help people, not in a traditional sense, not being a doctor. I guess at the time I wanted to be, a physical therapist, so that was my way of helping people. But I think over time I realized I wanted to do in a non-traditional way.
Right.
And in order to do that, I had to develop this mindset. And, a lot of your experience through life, whether, trauma, good moments and everything, you don't realize it until down the road it really shapes your mindset. And so I think what differentiates me from some other people is that a lot of the trauma that I've experienced, I've taken lessons from it. I've looked back on it and said, okay, maybe this happened for this reason. and I either find the lesson in it or I actually create a lesson.
Right.
And
Right.
I
I love
actually
that.
teach myself from those moments. And so I think that's what kind of separates me from other people is people will take those experiences and just let it affect them and say,
Mhm.
I'm sad because of this, or I am who I am because of this. But there's other things within those experiences that people don't really look into.
Right.
And I think that's what shapes your mindset down the road.
I'm with you 100%. Yeah. No. And so like how do you pair that in terms of like the business mentality and things that you're transitioning into as well?
Um, so I've always wanted to own a business.
Mhm.
I think I realized that when I was 14 or 15, around that time.
Yeah.
I I've never been the person to be told what to do.
Uh,
I don't I don't like
natural defiant, yeah.
yeah. So, you know, I'll listen to other people's advice, but I
Mhm.
always do what I'm gonna do. And I think I look for that advice just to reassure my decision, or even just to say it out loud. And I'll
Yeah.
tell if I say it out loud, I'm like, okay, that doesn't make any sense, or that's stupid. I'm not going to do it that way. Um, but yeah, I don't like being told what to do. I always make decisions. I like to beat to my own drum and
Yeah.
you know create the life that I want to create. I don't like conforming. I don't like sticking to the norm, even though
Mhm.
I still work in a 9 to 5 job right now, but trying to make that transition.
Right.
And so I think just from that, I've always down deep down, I've always had a business mindset, but I
Mhm.
never actually went into it. I never actually practiced what I preached.
Mhm.
And the past 2 years, especially with COVID, I've realized that life is short. I've been wanting to own a business for the longest time, and I would always think about what if I
Yeah.
never started. 10 years down the road, still working in a 9 to 5 job, I would have thought, what if I started that business 10 years ago? Where would I be
Mhm.
now? And it's that constant fear of not doing what I want to do that has pushed me to get where I am today.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think
Yeah.
like the interesting part, because obviously me being a business owner as well, like transitioning into that world, you're actually signing up for more work. And I think like that's the interesting part is that people that think of, oh, you own your own business, you make X amount of dollars or whatever else, like you're signing up for an ability to literally work endlessly in terms of the drive and the mindset and the motivation. Like it's nonstop. And I think I posted online just a couple of days ago is once you punch in terms of your business, you never punch out. You never clock out. It's always 24/7, and sometimes that's hard to balance, especially just in personal life and things too, whether that's relationships and anything else. It's usually my mind is always driven to grow and take something in new, whether it's business, whether that's relationship, whether that's family, you name it, kind of thing. Like it always has to be involved or worked around your business.
No, and I completely agree. And I think that's where people who aren't entrepreneurs or aren't working in a business or starting a business, it's hard for them to understand our
Mhm.
mindset because, like you said, once you punch in, you never punch out.
Right, right.
And not even just on, looking at a day in the life of an entrepreneur. It's once you decide on creating that business,
Mhm.
you're punched in for life
Yeah, yeah.
until, whatever happens with your business. And once I decided to start this, my
Mhm.
mind has always been about business,
Yeah.
and which is a good and a bad thing.
Mhm.
I'm always thinking about what can I do to make my business successful? What's going to be my next step today or tomorrow? And those are the good things. And I love every aspect of it. And I
Yeah.
love the journey that I've been on so far. But where I've noticed so far is I'm not always present
Mhm.
in the social settings of being with friends and family.
Yeah.
I'm not engaging in conversation like I used to, and people have told me that they've seen a difference in me
Right, right.
in a good way, but I've noticed I can't be fully present all the time because I'm always worried about how am I making my business successful? How am
Mhm.
I making it stand out? How am I creating this great brand and trying to build an empire?
Yeah,
And you're right. You never clock out because
yeah.
you're always thinking about it. But also what I love about it is that I love to work
Mhm.
and I signed up for this
Yeah.
and it's going to be very stressful and overwhelming and it already has been,
Mhm.
but it's the fact that I created the stress and everything, I don't mind it.
Right.
I don't like being stressed about another job I have, like working for somebody else. I'd rather stress about my own problems that I've created with my business.
I'm with you 100%. Yeah.
Because ultimately, you're creating the blueprint for your business. You're starting from square one. This is a business that nobody else has created, whether you're in the same industry or not. But you are creating the blueprint. You're creating basically a training manual for future employees, basic for yourself. And so you're creating this huge thing, an amazing thing that is very stressful because you're not going to win every day.
Yeah.
You're going to, you're going to fall on your face more times than not.
Right.
And it's all about how you, again, where are the lessons in that? Find the lesson in that, pick yourself up and figure out what to do right.
Yeah.
From when you fail. But yeah, so it's a very stressful journey, but it's very rewarding in the end. When you have those really bad days and then the next day you have a really good one, that outweighs the bad.
Absolutely. And I think like the thing that I usually use a lot, especially me being a life coach, is I always look at it as a human needs system, as in certainty and uncertainty. Is that most people, we make decisions based off of how much certainty can I attach to this? And I love the fact that you use blueprint. That's a foundation, fundamental tool that I use with a lot of people. If you're going to build something, look at it like you're building a house. Look at it like you're building your own world. What's the foundation look like? How much certainty can we attach to things in order to balance out our brain and our mindset? And so, like, how do you balance uncertainty, or what are the tools or techniques that you use to kind of add more certainty into your world?
I think I'm still trying to learn that.
We all are.
Yeah, I am, every day is not guaranteed. Every day is, you're not guaranteed to win. You're not guaranteed to, you're not even guaranteed to fail. You just never know. For this new business that I'm starting with the apparel company, which we'll get into a little bit later, I don't know what's going to come the next day with a manufacturer, because my manufacturers that I'm in connection with are overseas. So I don't know what's going to happen. And, the website that I'm creating, I don't know if I'm going to have an error with it the next day. I don't know. I don't know if my design ideas are going to change the next day. I just never know.
Right.
And I think what I've figured out, or I've learned, is that I'm okay with uncertainty, because if one thing does not go right the next day, that's probably for a reason.
Right.
For example, I have been struggling with naming this clothing line, and I had this one name that I really wanted.
Yeah.
And I was super stoked about it. Talked to my attorney. We looked up the trademark, because I have to trademark it. And she said, there's a similar name with it, or there's a name that sounds similar to yours in the same industry. So you're most likely not going to get the trademark. And I was extremely sad. Because it took me so long to figure out this name. But I'm so happy I figured that out. And I'm so happy that there was another name that sounded similar to mine, because the name that I've decided on and I'm getting trademarked is such a stronger name and more inspirational name and very, very, very unique. And I'm so happy for those uncertain moments in the past, because it has gotten me to a better place in the startup of my business.
I love that. Yeah.
So I just learned to embrace the uncertainty, and I do have control issues. So
that's what people do.
Yeah. So that's the hard part, is that especially owning a business, you're going to become extremely OCD and extremely controlling, because it is your baby.
Yeah.
And I have those control issues, but at the same time, I'm okay with not knowing what's going to happen the next day.
Right.
Because I also thrive off of change and being out of my comfort zone.
Yeah.
So it's also really exciting, not knowing what's going to come next, tomorrow. So, new levels, new devils is what I've heard before. So
yeah, I love it. Yeah. Yeah, I think the thing that I always try to get balanced, like I struggle with uncertainty a lot. Like I've just spent, almost a decade in the field of personal development and learning as a therapist, as a life coach. I studied under Tony Robbins and understanding all like I've researched and went after some of the best minds in terms of my business, and I still haven't gotten it all figured out, nor will I ever. Like I'm always attached. I'm a student at heart, and I always will be. I'm always reading something. I'm always reflecting. I'm always growing. I'm always after things that disrupt my current level of thinking anyway. So I love that uncertainty. And the thing that I find most groundedness in is I can always control my effort. I can't control what the world or anything else around me is doing, but I can control my effort. And that means I'm at least sane or at least stable and grounded in one area, which is I can control the momentum moving forward, whether it's, it goes in a different direction. As long as I have an idea of where my blueprint, is supposed to go, I can control how much effort, how much mindset, how much drive I push in that direction. If I desire to live in a beautiful state, there's not much that's going to stop me from achieving that. I just have to work harder. And I think that's what most people really struggle with a lot is how much effort, how much, work are you willing to put in something to live in a different headspace and a different mindset.
Yeah, and it's really about, I guess it goes hand in hand,
Mhm.
how you react to those uncertain moments.
Oh,
I
absolutely.
could have, when I found out that I didn't get the name
Mhm.
or there was a similar name trademark, I could have thrown my computer. I could have cried. I could have, I could have, just laid in bed for the rest of the day. But I
Yeah.
was like, all right, I didn't get the name. The
Mhm.
name's not going to work. So I'm back to the drawing board. I'm back
Yeah.
on, Pinterest, on social media, trying to find inspiration. Another way I reacted to it was I disconnected mentally from
Mhm.
thinking about a name for a day or two to be present in things going on, for the holiday season. And in that time of disconnecting, I found inspiration.
Yeah.
And that's where I came up with the new name, which
Mhm.
I can't say yet. But
I was gonna say, can you say it yet?
not yet, because once I'll say it
Mhm.
once I officially get the trademark, because I just want to
Yeah,
make
I'm
sure it
with
all
you.
goes
I'm with you.
well.
Yep.
But yeah, it's really all about how you react. If you are
Mhm.
going to, it's really with a business owner, if you're gonna kick and scream if you don't get
Mhm.
what you want or if things
Yeah.
don't go your way, it's hard to stay as an entrepreneur. It's hard to live that entrepreneurial lifestyle because
Uh-huh.
you really got to roll with the punches. You really
Right.
got to be very, very strong physically and
Mhm.
mentally to basically take the beating, because
Mhm.
you are going to take numerous beatings.
Absolutely, absolutely, and I
Yeah.
think like that's always the biggest thing. I believe any business, any entrepreneur is that the business is successful based on the owner psychology, and if you have an owner that is willing to put in the work, put in the hours, understand themselves, you can lead effectively. And I think like that's where once again your brand's going to grow too, and then eventually you're going to have people under you or whatever direction that runs in. But it's one of those things like as long as your head is on right and you've done the back end work in terms of your own psychology, you can lead effectively because your mission and everything else is clear underneath it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you are the face of your business,
Mhm.
you created it from the ground up.
Yep.
So, and that's another thing, you got to be your true self. You got to be authentic, because ultimately that's what's selling your brand. That's what's selling your
Absolutely.
business.
Mhm.
If you are somebody who has a bad attitude
Yeah.
or is disrespectful, a lot of people aren't going to buy into it.
Mhm.
They
Right.
want to work they want to work with you.
Mhm.
They are buying into your business, but they're also buying into you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So tell me a little bit more. So we'll kind of shift gears a little. Tell me a little bit more about just your business in general, and like anything that you can kind of tell about it, and just what's that spark. Every time you talk about it, obviously you smile ear to ear kind of thing where it makes you
Yeah.
come alive, and like that's what I want people. And like my podcast in terms of Unbroken, it leads us to you have a past, you have a backstory as we all do, but there's things that you still are chasing in terms of your life that makes you just come alive. And this is clearly something that your foundation was built on, X, Y, and Z. But what you're building right now is basically rising from what happened and where you're at and all those different areas. So yeah, so tell us a little bit more about what makes this special for you.
Yeah. So before I get into the backstory
Mhm.
and, I passed
Yeah.
about why I got here, I'm starting a clothing business or a clothing
Mhm.
line, starting off with more loungewear stuff, centered around mental health.
Mhm.
And a percentage of the profits will be donated to nonprofit organizations. to help fund and create more resources for the mental health community, whether it's you as an individual seeking out the resources or for family members or friends or loved ones, anybody like that. And so I love loungewear, especially since COVID, working from home. And I buy a lot of loungewear, a lot of sweatshirts and sweatpants. And at some point I was like, well, I want to be comfy, but I also want to look cute and, fashionable in some sense. And over time, in the past couple of years, people have really turned loungewear into streetwear too. And they've dressed it up and they've dressed it down. So I want something to be very versatile. But I also want to create this mission and this message and vision for the brand and for my customers and consumers buying into it. And I want people to feel comfortable, and I want people to feel good about themselves, even in a baggy t-shirt and baggy sweatpants.
Right.
Because I always feel I for some reason I feel like I look best in a baggy t-shirt and sweatpants.
Yeah.
I've embraced the look. So so that's what I'm creating. And so how I got into it, I've always, like I said, I've always wanted to own a business, and I've thought about starting an apparel line a few years ago, but I always doubted myself. I told myself, this industry is saturated. Not going to be successful. Who am I to start a business? Who am I to start a clothing line? And I also have people in my ear telling me, again, the industry is saturated. You know, maybe you should wait a couple years to build up your social media platform, or wait for this or wait for that. And I listened to those people. And a lot of them were family members and close friends and family. And I valued their opinion. But over the past year, I just said, fuck it. I'm doing it. I'm doing it. Like when, I just asked myself, what am I waiting for? I don't have to have hundreds of thousands of followers on Instagram to have a successful business. It, obviously social media is very prevalent, and that's where a lot of business is done. But I can build my social media platform at the same time I'm building my business. It doesn't have to be one or the other. It can be both. And so that's how I got into it, or into the mindset of starting this business. But mental health is very, very important to me. I've battled with anxiety and depression since I was probably about 14 or 15. So about 10 or 11 years ago. And I think it stemmed from years ago when my parents got divorced, and I was a middle child. So I was put in the middle also. I was the only one out of my siblings who went to college. So financial issues were always a problem with my parents, and going to college, obviously it's a big financial responsibility. And I was always put in the middle for it. And so it stemmed from that. And then, going to college with the pressures of college and your identity and your future career and your future overall.
Everything.
It was a lot of, everybody deals with it. And I think that's where anxiety and depression is more prevalent, is with either seniors in high school going to college and college students. So it's, all of that just kept building up and building up. And then in 2018 or 2019, I am already losing track. I lost my dad to cancer. And at that point, at some point I just thought I couldn't go on. There's no reason for me to finish school or anything like that. And this is where I'll get teary-eyed. But I think at some point before he passed away, I was like, I'm just gonna move back to Jersey. Like, I need to be with my family. I applied to transfer colleges back to Jersey. I got accepted. And then, I was sitting around at home after my dad passed, and I was like, why do I want to be here? It's very different now that he's not there. So I was like, why would I come back? So after I was home for like a few weeks after he passed, and I just went back. I came back to North Carolina. I went back to work because it was over the summer. And my coworkers were like, oh, like how was home? They didn't know what happened. And I was like, because I was home for 6 weeks, and I just said I was home to be with family.
Yeah.
They didn't know actually what happened. And so they were like, oh, how was home? You know, and I told them what happened. They're like, why are you working? Like, why are you back at work? And I'm like,
Right.
I have to work, you know, like I was financially responsible for myself for a year before he passed, because once he
Mhm.
got sick with cancer, I had to, you know, it was a big financial responsibility to get him better.
Yeah.
So I had to pay for college on my own. I paid for tuition out of pocket.
Mhm.
Um, Luckily, I got in-state tuition at some point, which saved me money, but
Yeah.
I had to take on all the financial responsibility for myself. And I kept saying, well, I have to work. Like, I have to go back to work.
Yeah.
And I think that's where I've also developed a strong mindset and business mindset and
Absolutely.
work ethic is from my dad. He would work 80 hours a week,
Mhm.
sometimes, and just to provide food for us and put, you know, food on the table for us and, you know, provide a good life for us. But
Yeah.
he struggled too.
Yeah.
Ooh, um, and sorry, I just lost my
You're
train
good.
of
You're
thought.
good. You're good.
Um, but I took that passing of my dad
Mhm.
as an opportunity for myself to make something of myself and
Absolutely.
create a legacy, and also carry his legacy as well, because he was this he had this vibrant um, personality. He would
Mhm.
light up every room he walked in. He had relationships and
Mhm.
friendships all over the world. Every
Yeah.
time I would vacation somewhere, he would go, oh, I have a friend over there, like, go talk to him, go hit him up. And I'm like, Dad, I'm on vacation for like two
Yeah.
days with my friends. I'm not gonna go
Yeah.
hang out with your old college friend, like,
Right. Right.
you know. So he had so many
Mhm.
friendships and relationships, and anywhere he went, he
Yeah.
would make a friend.
Mhm.
And that's something that I've kind of adapted even way before he passed.
Yeah.
And I would make friends with a random person walking down the street.
Mhm.
Um, and so I wanted to carry on with his legacy and
Yeah.
also create another legacy of my own on top of that.
Mhm.
So I took it as a learning experience, about where I came from and where I'm going.
Yeah.
Um, and then also my siblings also battle with anxiety and depression. And
Mhm.
it's hard when it's one thing when you're going through it, it's another
Yeah.
thing when your siblings or your loved ones go through it as
I get
well.
it. Mhm.
Because ultimately, what you do, especially what I did, is I take on the burden.
Oh,
I took
absolutely.
on their emotions. So if one of my siblings was having an off day, even though I was
Mhm.
having a good day, I would take on those emotions,
Mhm.
and I would have a bad day just because
Absolutely.
they were. So it's hard when you're experiencing it yourself, but then when your family members or friends are experiencing it as well, it's even harder because
Yeah.
now it's double the emotions.
Mhm.
So ultimately, with this business, I wanted to give back. I
Mhm.
wanted to, again, we're circling back to me wanting to help other people in a
Yeah.
non-traditional way. This is my way of doing it.
Yeah.
And I've always sensed with myself that I have a purpose.
Mhm.
And I think everyone believes that they have a purpose.
Yeah.
They just haven't tapped into it. And a lot of people are scared to um, tell people
Mhm.
what their passion is. I
Yeah.
was always scared of telling people that I was starting a clothing line.
Yeah.
You know, when I decided to shift gears and go into it, every person I would talk to about it, I would get this feeling inside of me that says, should I be telling them? Like,
Right.
I'm scared of their reaction, or I'm
Mhm.
nervous for their reaction. Are they going to be like, oh, that's stupid? Why would you do that?
Yeah.
But then when I would tell people what I'm doing and why I'm doing it, the response I've gotten has been nothing but
Yeah.
positive and supportive and excitement.
Mhm.
And every reaction I get is another reason for me to do what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So yeah.
That's powerful, and that's once again, like, just talking with you even briefly, a couple weeks ago when we originally got connected, you went into some of that depth, especially with your past and the reasons why you wanted to support mental health and the passing of your dad. Like that's the one reason that among others that I wanted you on my podcast is Unbroken. That's the foundation of what this name truly represents, and I want your strength to parallel and go and connect with other people because people attach to our struggles. They attach to what they can relate to or what they can't understand, or they attach to the emotions. And you're that living walking proof of you're not defined by your story. You're not defined by your past. Like you get to own that and recognize it. But other people, sometimes get crippled for years based on that, as in I can't move on, I can't do this. Like, and it's so wonderful and powerful for someone like you, where it's like you take such a raw, painful moment of your life, and instead of being defined and crippled by it, you literally grow from it. And I think that that's what I see every single day in terms of my line of work. And once again, like that's who I always desire and want to surround myself with, people that are not necessarily defined by their pain, but people that have a story that there's no other way other than forward, that you have to go.
Yeah.
And
And I
yeah.
will say I was that type of person where I
Mhm.
defined myself
Yeah.
from my past. I used my past as an excuse actually for a while.
Mhm.
I would use the death of my father as an
Mhm.
excuse, and
Yeah.
I would use, where I grew up and how I grew up as an excuse. But and honestly, I didn't stop doing that until 2 or 3 years ago.
Right.
Um, I just decided that I actually had a conversation with a very close friend of mine from home, and we were just talking about our past and everything we've been through, and we were both saying how we don't want to be defined by our past,
Mhm. Yeah.
and maybe at that moment that was like my deciding moment that I wasn't going to
Mhm.
be defined by my past. And you're right, there is no other option but to move forward. You can't
Mhm.
stay in the moment.
Mhm.
I heard this from another podcast, if you're not growing, you're dying.
Mhm.
And and again, when I went back to work after my dad passed, people were like, why
Yeah.
are you working? Well, I mean, I can't sit on the couch for
Mhm.
another month or two
Mhm.
to grieve and not make money. How am I going to pay my bills?
Yeah.
You know, there, there are moments to grieve, and I don't know if I've actually had a full moment or full
Mhm.
amount of time to
Right.
grieve. And I think, I'll always be grieving. I'll always be
Mhm.
mourning, and it's never going to be okay. But
Mhm.
like you said, you have to move forward. You have to find not the good in what happened necessarily, depending on the situation, but
Mhm.
you have to take what you went through
Mhm.
and make something positive out of it. And
Mhm.
for me, that was not being defined by my past, and that was creating this business and creating a legacy and building something amazing
Mhm.
and inspirational. And I guess that's what I took from it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's powerful. And that's like, once again, like where you were saying, like, I always believe in terms of our whys in life, and the business that I opened up is Leave Your Mark Life Coaching, and the name around that, like, once again, the same foundation of, I believe we have to start to find a different way to attach purpose or direction to our pain. So like for me, I was also a middle child. My parents, were divorced at, when I was roughly 14 years old, and, the ping pong around emotions, and, I had athletics. So I jumped into that and all those different things. Like, growing up in northern Pennsylvania and having a rough upbringing in different ways, and then that transitioned on to many other obstacles that I faced. But for me, my name of Leave Your Mark Life Coaching is, no matter who we come across, whether they're positive, whether they're negative, that someone always leaves a mark on us. It's up to us to define what that mark truly means to us. And I believe some of the most influential people in my world are some of the people that left the biggest areas of pain in my world too, because they literally steered me in a different direction. They left a mark on me so deep that I either was going to be defined by it in a negative way, or defined in a positive way, as in I won't let this cripple me, I won't let this stop me, or whatever situation kind of popped up. That's how I always try to approach and look at life, as in what mark was left, and you get to decide what direction it steers you in ultimately.
Yeah. And, it's great that you brought that up, because I feel like, and I tell a lot of people this, that I didn't notice it
Hmm.
right off the bat, but I've been hardened
Hmm.
by the passing of my dad.
Yeah.
And I think I really figured that out when I was in a very tough situation in college with some friends, and I wasn't even really fazed by it.
Right.
Because to me, and it's kind of how I go on with life now, I saw the worst when I saw my dad pass. You know, for 2 weeks, I physically watched him deteriorate, and to me, that was the worst thing I could ever experience. And I told myself that nothing else is going to faze me.
Yeah.
And I think that's why I take every shitty situation that comes my way, kind of just most of the time, brush it off my shoulder. Because in the back of my mind, I'm thinking about what I experienced in the past, and nothing else will ever compare.
Yeah.
And there's no reason for me to get upset over not getting the first name for a trademark. There's no reason for me to get upset.
Yeah.
Because I always live by the mantra, everything happens for a reason.
Yeah.
There is a reason I went to school in North Carolina. There's a reason I moved to Raleigh instead of moving back to Jersey. There's a reason I didn't get the trademark name. There's a reason for a lot of things. There's a reason for me being in one place at the right moment and meeting a very important person, which just happened to me last week, and I'll get into that briefly. But yeah, it hardened me. It really did. And I think that's what also shaped the strong mindset that I have too.
Yeah.
And I take everything head on, and I accept everything that comes my way, and I decide how I react.
Yeah. What we were talking about, even just behind the scenes there for a little bit, is, just that mental resiliency, but that hardness that she was kind of talking about. And what I was saying is, I live with people, every single day in terms of my line of work that, are able and encouraged to share their story, encouraged to share their pain and process those different things. I think that's where the thing that I value some of the most, as she was talking through, some of her backstory and pain. Like, I wasn't jumping in to disrupt. I wasn't jumping into, soul or console her in those different ways. I was allowing her to feel that because she's able to, and she should be encouraged to do that. And I think like that's some of the stuff that I respect most about people in terms of where their strength really comes from. It's the ability to feel.
Yeah. And a lot of the times I would tell people things I've experienced in the past, and a lot of the response I would get would be, holy shit, like, how are you here today? Or how are you who you are? How do you have the mindset that you have? And, it's easier said than done. I can't tell people I can't hold their hand on how to get better. I can give them the tools and resources that I've learned and I've adopted over the years. And like we were talking behind the scenes, is that a lot of people aren't open to talking about their emotions. And again, that's another reason why I wanted to create this apparel line. Is I want to create more of a safe space, more talk and more awareness, and open up the conversations about mental health. If you're having a bad day, have your bad day. A lot of the times I've occupied my time and my mind with other things and not allowed myself to actually heal and feel my feelings. And that would just mask it and put a Band-Aid on it. And then a few days down the road, things would get worse. My anxiety would keep building, my, whatever my emotions were would keep building, and then I completely crash.
Absolutely.
And I actually had a client of mine at the gym. She asked, how do you deal with your anxiety? And I said, I literally feel it. I take it on. I figure out what's driving my anxiety, whether I can figure it out or not, but I actually let myself feel it. And over the years, I've developed healthy habits. I've developed listening to self-development podcasts, reading self-development books, going for walks, being outside, going to the gym. Gym is like my therapy, basically. And when I have those bad days, I fall back on those healthy habits. I try to stick to my routine because I know that's what makes me happy. And that eases the pain a little bit. But I also told her there are days where I have really, really bad anxiety where I physically cannot get out of bed.
Hmm.
I'm physically not able to get out of bed. I'm nauseous.
Hmm.
I'm questioning who I am. I'm questioning my worth, my passion, my goals for,
Yeah.
everything about me and what I'm doing. I question everything and I just lay in bed and I sulk.
Hmm.
And then the next day, I'm up.
Yeah.
I get out of bed. I got to go to work.
Hmm.
I have to pay the bills. And then I'm always reminded of my why
Yeah.
and my passion and my purpose. And that's a little bit how I get out of the rut. But again, every day is not guaranteed. I'm uncertain of how I'm going to feel tomorrow.
Hmm.
I could be over the moon excited for my business, or I could wake up and completely doubt myself.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But it's normal. And that's the thing that people aren't understanding is that it's normal to have these feelings. It's normal to feel happy one day and super sad the next day.
Hmm. Yeah.
It goes back to the uncertainty thing. It's not just uncertain about my business, it's I'm uncertain about who I am a
Hmm.
lot of the times.
Yeah.
But it's the mindset that I've created over the years that have helped me be grounded and come back to who I am.
Yes, yes. I think like that's what I see often too is that people want to get better. They want to be on that high, and I believe normal and healthy isn't a flat line going across the board. It's jagged, as in you're going to
Hmm.
have a lot of ups and a lot of downs. And I think I've gained more perspective from my downs than I ever had from my ups. And I think like that's where one thing I always encourage people is like you said when you're in that rut when you're struggling in that way is embrace it. I'm a big believer in it. Like I want to feel it all. That means I will dive into those depths, and that means I will search for where am I in the most pain, where am I struggling here, what's going on here. Like I don't want to come a couple weeks later and the same issue pop back up. I'd rather feel it and feel it all, and then move forward from it. And I think when you go in that searching mindset that you want it done and over with, find it and move forward from that aspect of things. And I think just the ability to feel things is such a powerful tool.
Yeah, it really is. And, you know, there's still a stigma
Mhm.
around mental health and everything. And everybody's still trying to break it, that are in this industry of,
Mhm.
creating a healthier outlook on mental health and be comfortable with your emotions.
Yeah,
Um, but it's still a struggle every day to break through those barriers and break
absolutely.
through some of those strong and stubborn people
Mhm.
where they say, "Oh, well, like I don't feel that way. I don't understand how you're feeling that way." Like
Mhm.
at the same time, like some people will look at me and what I'm doing with, working 3 jobs, one of them including building a business, and they'll think I'm doing good,
Mhm.
but they don't know the behind the scenes.
Right.
They don't know what I deal with on a daily basis. And what I really want to do with this business is I want to also show not just what it looks like on the front line, but what it looks like behind the scenes.
Mhm.
Me struggling on a day-to-day basis of, you know, in the future packing orders and
Yeah.
website going down or questioning what next product I want to launch.
Yeah.
I want them to see the real, true, authentic way of building a business
Yeah.
and learning who you are throughout the process too,
Absolutely.
because it's not all glamorous, trust me,
Right. Right.
not
Right.
at all.
Yeah.
So, and because ultimately I want to be another pillar of strength and
Mhm.
inspiration for other people to break out of the norm if
Mhm.
they really feel like they want to
Yeah.
and chase after that dream that they've been wanting to do or figure out your passion. A lot of people will say, "You're lucky you know your passion." Well, I'm not lucky. I'm not
Mhm.
lucky at all. I worked for it. I
Absolutely.
worked a lot of odd jobs to figure out what I want and what I don't want. Um, and through those jobs, I've figured out, all right, well, I don't want to do this. I don't want to work in this industry. Then I move on to the next job. I don't like this job. I'm going to move on.
Yep.
And then over time, it just started building and building. And people are just very scared to get out of their comfort zone.
Mhm.
They're very comfortable with the certainty
Yes.
of what's coming the
Mhm.
next day. And
Absolutely.
that's fine. That's fine. But for me, I can't stand it.
Yeah.
I'm always looking for change,
Hmm.
which is again good and a bad thing.
Yeah.
But I like being out of my comfort zone, and a
Mhm.
lot of people don't like it. And that's where I'm trying to push some people is get out of
Mhm.
their comfort zone, aka talking about their emotions.
Right,
And
right, right.
tell me you had a bad day. Don't tell me you're fine. Don't tell me
Yeah,
you had a great day when you were crying all day in bed. Like, own it.
yeah.
And that's the thing. A lot of people aren't owning who they are.
Yeah, I think
And
there's limited growth in certainty, and I think that's one of the things. Like, I love certainty. It gives me peace. It gives me relaxation. It gives me everything that I need at certain moments. But there's limited growth in that. Uncertainty is where you really start to have those breakthroughs, those areas of basically the next level of personal and physical development, or your just family life as well. And I believe you only deserve what you earn, and how much are you willing to put in? How much are you willing to work for it? How much are you willing to invest in order to earn it? We often go through life and say, I deserve this, I deserve that. Like, we deserve, very, very minimal. And I think,
mhm.
that's one of the things, like, I absolutely love. I've had that quote attached to my life, for many years, even as a college wrestler, is that, I never earned those big titles and those different things, chased them, absolutely. But I never had that, just based on the fact, like, I had to own the fact that I didn't deserve it. I didn't earn it. And I think that's a big thing. Like, it just makes you hungry. It makes you push even further, as in, what else am I able to do, willing to do? And it just pushes people further.
Yeah, and I saw some of my family members struggle with,
Hmm.
you know, finding the right job or being happy in their current career, and
Hmm.
also struggle financially. We
Yeah.
struggled as a family, and I still do struggle financially as a 25-year-old who's
Hmm.
building a business and
Yeah.
has student loans and rent and everything. But my the bigger picture is what's worth it for me,
Hmm.
and I'm willing to put everything I have into it, because I want to. If I have to walk away, I want to walk away knowing I put all my time and money
Hmm.
that I had into building something, and if it didn't work,
Yeah.
it didn't work. But I'm not quitting, and I'm not willing to quit even tomorrow.
Hmm.
I'm not even willing to quit years from now. And it's all about how much do you want it,
Yeah.
and how much effort and how much work are you willing to put into it.
Hmm.
You know, it's not going to take an hour a day
Yeah.
to fight for what you want. It's going to take long days, long hours,
Mhm.
a strong mindset, and you will get to where you want to be.
Absolutely.
And people just aren't focused on the bigger picture. I think they're just focused on the now,
Hmm.
which is great, but you also have to figure out
Yeah.
what's the life that you want to live when you leave this world. Do you want to look back and say I did everything that I wanted to do?
Yeah. There has to be that area of consistency. I'm a big believer in consistency compounds as well, and it's one of those things that the more consistent you are in the areas that you want to push, you want to get on that next level, is that it just adds up. The more consistent you are with business, more consistent you are with nutrition, working out, family, is that you're only going to get better and better and better, or you're going to learn a lot of information along the way too. And the more
Yeah,
consistent,
and
yeah.
I I'm telling you right now, I never took a business class.
Hmm.
Never. I mean, I think I maybe took one in high school,
Yeah.
and I wasn't even into it.
Hmm.
I wasn't paying attention. I was a sophomore.
Right. Yeah.
I never took a business class
Yeah.
ever. I didn't know anything about a business. I learned everything to start a business all on my own this year.
Absolutely.
I fell into a deep dark hole of
Mhm.
the internet and learned how to file an LLC,
Yep.
file a trademark. Um, Still learning about taxes. Um, the process of starting a business, what
Yeah.
to expect in the startup phase of a business, what not to expect, your expectations and everything. And
Yeah.
I, every single day this year, I have been on the computer learning.
Absolutely.
And I figured out how to start an LLC. I figured out the trademark process. I figured out how to start a clothing line.
Mhm.
But at the same time, I'm still learning every day.
Absolutely.
Like,
And you
the
have to.
information I learned yesterday, great, I learned it. There's new
Mhm.
information to learn today.
Mhm.
And it's all
Absolutely.
about how I take that information and practice it,
Yeah.
because I can read about it, that's one thing, but actually doing it is another. And a lot of the things I learned about starting a business, I would hear on podcasts, you're not going to make a lot of money in the first 1 to 3 years or even more. And, I was like, okay, yeah, whatever. Like, I understood it. But then as I'm living it,
Mhm.
it's a whole nother ball game.
Right, right.
And now you're like, shit, this is real. Like, this is fucking hard.
I'm with you. I'm with you. Uh-huh.
But if it wasn't hard, then you're not doing anything right.
Right.
So,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
yeah.
Do you have anything else to add to? We're going to end it here. Do you have anything else to add or share that you want to kind of leave out some of our listeners, with?
Yeah, I mean, I think this podcast came at a great time near the end of
Mhm,
the year. And going to 2022,
mhm,
I saw a quote actually yesterday on Instagram.
mhm,
2021 was a year to heal,
mhm.
2022 is the year to win.
I love it.
So go into 2022 with positive mindset, whatever your passion is, whatever your goals are, even if it's a side job or a side gig that brings you happiness,
Mhm.
do it.
Yep.
All right. Life is too short. I know it's so cliche to say, but if you're not happy in your current situation, do something about it. Because
Absolutely.
why would you want to live a life full of sadness or, not being happy or lack of passion? Um, so go in 2022 with a positive mindset and get uncomfortable.
Mhm.
Start talking about your feelings if you have these feelings, and don't be ashamed of who you are. Be authentic, create great relationships and friendships, and hopefully you win in 2022.
Absolutely. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on. And like I said, your mindset is something that I value and respect. And all the best to you. And I'm sure we'll have you on again in the future to check in and once again pick your brain with what it took to kind of get on that next level that you're chasing right now too.
Thank you. Yeah, and keep up with my social media. You'll see what I'm dropping in the next year. So,
Awesome, awesome.
I'm excited for for the new year.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.